Welcome to the Engerati studio at European Utility Week 2015. I'm in the studio today with Dr. Eduardo Zabala, who is the head of the electric vehicle program at Tecnalia. Welcome so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's just start with Tecnalia. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization and kind of what your goals are and what your role is in the smart grid electric vehicle world?
Yeah, indeed. Tecnalia is a research institution. It's one of the biggest in Europe. We are about 1,500 people. We are located mainly in the Basque Country, but we are in the north of Spain, and we have delegations throughout the world. So we are participating in different fields, for instance, buildings, industry, different applications, also automotive for industry, and we want to focus on energy and environment, whereas where we are working a lot in the field of smart grids. So in general, also in this field, but in general, we complement our approach for research, mainly focused for industry, who are our customers, with certification and assessment for products. So that is another way to help the industry.
Okay, so it sounds like you've been around for a number of years. Is that true as a general research group with many technology initiatives?
Yeah, that is true.
All right, and so now you're taking a lot of that expertise and moving into the smart grid energy world. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your initiatives. And one of the things I'm most curious about is the relationship of the research to the business. How does that work? That's not always an easy relationship. So I think you probably have some things to share with us about that.
It's fine, and yes, it's a very good question indeed. Yes, because we have been dealing with microgrid, dealing with the first approaches for smart grid, the integration of distributed energy and so on, for something like 15 years.
Right.
So that is a lot. We have been studying sensors, studying how to integrate that in the management of the electricity grid, also all the stuff about ICTs, all the protocols that are necessary and so on. When focusing on microgrids, it was really interesting in order to going in deep into the different products, the different technologies, how to deal with isolated grids, how to connect. So
okay, that's an important issue now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just in developed countries, but also, of course, for electrification, energy poverty issues as well.
Yeah.
It's a new world and a really important initiative. So, with so much experience, you must have some favorite initiatives or some case studies that will help us understand some of the things that you've worked on. Tell us about one or two of those.
Yeah, maybe. Well, in general, we have worked a lot around the microgrids and a lot about smart grids, even going to flexibility services and so on. Maybe you want a couple of examples. I will focus more on my present research.
The EV guy, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. In fact, the EV for us is a justification for our smart grid. The EV, if we are looking at a high penetration and a high deployment of electric vehicle, we'll need a really intelligent and smart grid. So, for instance, I will tell you a couple of initiatives we are working now. In COTEVOS project, we are dealing with the interoperability of the products that are necessary to integrate electric vehicles in the grid, and that is not obvious. Interoperability is a very too much used word, but it's very difficult to accomplish, and it's necessary.
And it's really the key.
It's really the key.
It's really the key. So as somebody who thinks a lot about electric vehicles, let's talk about that a little bit. electric vehicles have been coming for a long time. Every forecast for the last 10 years has talked about how it's going to pop and it'll cause terrible distress for the grid. Well, it hasn't really behaved that way as a market, although every major automaker now has some sort of an EV. So things are changing. Tell us a little bit what your thinking is around EVs in the grid. Is it a big danger, or is it just another opportunity to do things differently and to evolve?
It's a clear opportunity, but it's not a danger at all. For me, the problem can be that we are not able, that all the stakeholders, and not just the OEMs, vehicle manufacturers, but also mainly the DSOs and the people close to the utilities are able to play the role in order to allow that integration of electric vehicles. Really, there is no problem to integrate the vehicles. You don't prepare the grid, that can be really a problem, but there are different ways, conventional ways, innovative ways with a smart grid in which it's very easy to do that. But the problem is that we have a small, I will say, concern that if we, and maybe now is the moment, really are not able to get all the players ready to play the role, maybe, we can suffer some kind of decrease in the rate of deployment of the electric vehicles.
Well,
that is what is critical.
Sure, and you're talking about integration issues and as being the key to new innovation is what I'm hearing. A lot of I's these days: Internet of Things, innovation, integration. But they are, those are the key issues. And one of the big use cases for electric vehicles is, of course, the full vehicle-to-grid integration, which is where you can use the battery to offset, peaky behavior in the grid. I feel like that's probably kind of far off, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? It's a warranty issue for one thing, I would imagine.
4 years ago, I was completely keen on B2G, meaning the injection from the electric vehicle to the grid, like something that should be the way. That is not so important, in my opinion. What is important is to allow flexibility services. It's very important that you can negotiate with the vehicles, offering some incentives against that possibility of negotiation. That is the point. But you say, but vehicle to grid, can be technologically complicated. Maybe you talk about the damage to the battery and so on. Well, really, it's at this moment. 2 years ago, it was really a challenge. Now it's possible because the batteries have improved a lot. So it should be a key issue, a bottleneck for a flexible market for electric vehicle. It's not at all. It's not at all. We can have flexibility without B2G. But B2G could be one of the possibilities, and in my opinion, within 2 or 3 years, with no technological barriers. The point is the incentives and the interest for the customer to participate there. That is the key.
That's interesting. So, you have a research institution, you've done a lot with microgrids, interoperability, technology, but what I'm hearing you talk about is really the business model and, the economic flexibility, really. Not the flexibility of delivering an electron wherever it comes from in a distributed grid, but how do we support a utility business model? How do we work with prosumers, so now consumers participating in generation as well as consumption, of course. So I heard you use the word services. Tell me more about that. What are you envisioning in terms of a services economy?
Yeah, indeed. What the OEMs, for instance, want for the customers is that they are able to get the charge and at the end to fulfill the needs. But maybe that cannot be enough if we want to have a grid that really can be built in a proper way. So that is the part of the DSOs. So one way to do that without tons of coppers and aluminum can be really to go to a really smart grid in which you are able to play or to prepare the stakeholders to play different roles in order to allow for start offers. For instance, the electromobility service provider offers to one of the customers some idea of, for instance, from between 10 and 12 at night, you will be paid if you are able to charge, because at this moment we are exceed of production of renewables. That can be a possibility. Mm-hmm. So you need a lot of interaction between the players, a lot of communication, a lot of smart grid. So that is what can help with an affordable network to offer those high-level services in order not to be obliged to have a very expensive network.
So I hear you saying we just have a few minutes left. So just if I've heard you correctly, what I'm hearing you argue for is that grid resiliency really comes through flexibility, which comes from proper integration and interoperability, and that's sort of the key to being able to introduce new economic models, or, you know, as we have high penetration for solar, you know, the peak will change, to be able to shift things around automatically to keep the grid balanced.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anything you would like to share with us about your strategy in our last minute or two together?
Yeah, maybe just to remark, I think that is in the background, but to remark that it's very important that the incentives are really well planned according to a good approach for the business model. Now, there are some business models ongoing, but we are not who would be the most promising one. So it's clear that some money, some incentives, some public money should be available. And it's very important that we have methods to model the potential business, to evaluate them in order also to propose to the regulators to come up with the best approaches for help really to develop that business.
I agree, those are wise words. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. This is Carol Stimmel in the Engerati studio at European Utility Week 2015. Thanks so much.
Thank you.